Hello, children. Tonight's story we're going to read is called Seven at One Blow by Jay Williams. It all began with a pot of jam. Pipkin, the tailor, was sewing his suit. It was a fine June day. Jam, said Pipkin, sticking his needle into the cloth. Bread and jam for a summer's lunch. He went into the kitchen, he spread a slice of bread and began to eat. Then in through the window came the flies, drawn in by the sweet smell of jam. One landed on his nose. He swatted at it. Another tickled the top of his head. Slap! He killed it. But more flies were buzzing about him, trying for a taste of his jam. The little tailor picked up a piece of cloth. He waited until a number of flies had settled on the table. Then with one smack of the cloth, he squashed them. 7, he cried, 7 at one blow. Nobody in the village has ever done such a deed. He was so pleased with himself that he got out some leather and some red and yellow cloth. He stitched and he sewed, and when he was done he had a belt on which were the words 7 at one blow. This place is too small for a bold man like me, he said. I must leave it and go in search of my fortune. He began to pack. He didn't have much. He packed his scissors and some socks, 2 handkerchiefs and a tape measure. He put a piece of cheese in one pocket, and in the other pocket he put his canary because the cage was too heavy to carry. Then he shut the door behind him and started off into the world to find his fortune. After a long time he came to the land of Baron Baldismere. When he walked into the town, people stared and pointed at his belt. Soon the Baron himself came riding down to meet Pipkin. Greetings, said the Baron. You're just the man I am looking for. I am, said Pipkin. How nice. 7 at one blow, said the Baron. Splendid. A great reward is waiting for you. It is, said Pipkin. And all you have to do is one little deed, even smaller than killing 7 at one blow. In the forest there is a giant who is pulling up all of our trees and using them for firewood. Go and get rid of him, and the reward is yours. But, said Pipkin. Good, the Baron said. He agrees. Hooray! Shouted all the people. They rushed forward, picked up Pipkin, and carried him in on their shoulders out of the town, up the hill, to the edge of the forest, and there they left him. Pipkin picked himself up and dusted himself off. Well, he said, I may as well go and see what this giant looks like. I know the giants are big, but they are also very stupid. Perhaps I can get the best of him. He set off walking through the woods. Soon he came to the edge of a clearing. There, on the ground, sat a giant. He was 3 times as high as Pipkin, and he was eating a sandwich. Next to him was an oak tree, which he had pulled up by the roots. Ho! He roared when he saw Pipkin. Who are you? As bravely as he could, Pipkin replied, Do you see this belt? I am he who killed 7 at one blow. I have come to ask you to stop pulling up Baron Baldismere's trees. The giant rose to his feet and stared down at the little tailor. Miserable mite, he said, do you know who you're talking to? I am Giant Grim. He picked up a rock, holding it in the palm of one hand. He hit it with the other hand, and it split in 2. Oh, said Pipkin, I don't think so much of that. He slipped the piece of cheese out of the pocket and pretended to pick it up from the ground, as if it were a stone. Holding it in the palm of his hand, he hit it with his fist. It mashed flat and fell into bits. Giant Grim blinked. Then he said, Watch this! He picked up another rock and threw it into the air. Up it went until it was almost out of sight, and then it fell with a thump. Watch this, said Pipkin. He took the canary out of his other pocket and pretended to pick it up from the ground as if it were a stone. He threw it up into the air. Up it went, higher and higher, until it had vanished altogether. Grunted the giant. You're more of a man than I took you for. Well, come on home with me, and we'll talk things over. Just help me carry this tree. Certainly, said Pipkin. You carry the roots, and I will carry the branches, which are bigger. The giant picked up the tree and held it over his shoulder by the roots. Pipkin jumped up into the branches where the giant couldn't see him, and there he sat comfortably. "Are you ready?" called the giant. "Go ahead," answered Pipkin. "I'm holding my end." And away went the giant, carrying the tree, Pipkin and all. Soon they came to the giant's house. There, Pipkin hopped down from the branches. "Aren't you tired?" asked the giant, mopping his forehead. "Not a bit," said Pipkin. They went inside, and the giant showed Pipkin a bed as big as a tennis court. "I'm going to take a nap before dinner," said the giant. "You take a nap as well." "Fine," said Pipkin, jumping onto the bed. But as soon as the giant had gone, he jumped out again. "The bed is far too big for me," said he. He rolled up his coat and put it under the blanket. Then he curled up in a dark corner. Soon the giant came tiptoeing into the room. It was like a horse tiptoeing. In one hand he held an iron bar. "7 at one blow," muttered the giant. "I will have to destroy this fellow before he can harm me. He is stronger than I thought." He lifted the bar and hit the bed just where Pipkin's coat lay. With a crash, the bed broke in half. "That finishes him," said the giant. He went into the kitchen and began to fry an elephant for lunch. In walked Pipkin. "Hello," he said. "A mosquito just bit me, but woke me up. When do we eat?" With a scream of fright, the giant rushed out of the house and away, and never was seen again. Pipkin went back to the town of Baron Baldismere. When the Baron heard that Giant Grim was gone, he gave Pipkin a horse, a bag of gold, and a medal. Everyone applauded as Pipkin rode on his way again. Soon he came to the land of Lord Lurgan. When he rode into the town, he was greeted by cheers, and Lord Lurgan himself came out to meet him. "Baron Baldismere sent me a message about you," said Lord Lurgan. "You are just the man I am looking for." "But," said Pipkin. "Don't be modest," said Lord Lurgan. "We know all about your bold deeds. Just go to the river bank. There you will find a giant who is catching all my fish. Get rid of him and you shall be rewarded." "Oh well," said Pipkin to himself, "I suppose I'd better try. Big is strong, but maybe small is smarter." And aloud he said, "I'll see what I can do." Off he went to the banks of a wide, swift river. There he saw a giant who was so big that Pipkin barely came up to his knees. He was fishing from the shore with a rod that had 50 lines on it, each line with 10 hooks. When he saw Pipkin, he put down his rod. "Who are you?" he said in a voice like the grinding of stones. "I have come to ask you to stop fishing in this river," said Pipkin. "Meddlesome midget," bellowed the giant. "Do you know who I am? I am Giant Grum." "Is that so?" said Pipkin. "Do you see this belt? I am he who killed 7 at one blow and chased away Giant Grim." The giant turned a little pale. In a quieter voice that sounded like gravel being poured out of a bucket, he said, "Let's not quarrel. Sit down and fish with me, and we'll talk things over." But to himself the giant thought, "The first chance I get, I'll push him into the river." Pipkin said, "I need a fishing rod. Just bend this big tree over that I can get a hold of the top and pull it up." The giant bent the tree. Pipkin seized a branch. "Let go!" he called. When the giant let go, the tree snapped up straight. It flung Pipkin into the air. He sailed right over the river and landed on the other shore. "Hey!" the giant bawled. "What'd you do that for?" Pipkin called back, "The fishing is better over here. Jump over the way I did." "If you can do it, so can I," said the giant. He took 2 giant steps and gave a great leap. But he was so big and heavy that he couldn't jump far. He landed in the middle of the river with a splash. Giants cannot swim. When Pipkin returned to the town, he was treated as a hero. Lord Lurgan gave him a splendid suit of clothes and 2 bags of gold and a hat with an ostrich feather. When Pipkin rode away, everyone cheered. Soon he came to the city where the king lived. He was met by his soldiers who took him to the palace. There sat the king. "Welcome," said the king. "Baron Baldismere and Lord Lurgan have sent us messages about you. You are the champion we need." "Thank you, my lord," said Pipkin with a bow. "There is a small task for you here," the king went on. "Do it, and you shall have half the kingdom, and the hand of my daughter in marriage." There stood the princess beside the throne. She was as fresh and lovely as a May morning, and when she smiled, Pipkin felt dizzy. "What is the task?" he said. "One that will be easy for a man like you," said the king. "Go to the broad meadows beyond the city. There you will see Giant Graham. He has been standing there for 6 days trying to make up his mind, for giants, you know, are very slow." "Make up his mind about what?" said Pipkin. "Whether to stamp on our city or jump on it," said the king gloomily. He will decide any day now, so you had better get rid of him at once." Pipkin looked at the princess once more. "Very well, your majesty," he said. "I'll see what I can do." He rode to the broad meadows beyond the city. There stood Giant Graham, leaning on an iron club as big as a church steeple. He was so big that the little tailor only came up to the soles of his boots. Pipkin tipped back his head and shouted as loudly as he could, "I am he who killed 7 at one blow, and chased away Giant Grim, and drowned Giant Grum." But the giant was so big that he didn't hear him. He didn't even know Pipkin was there. He just went on standing with his mouth open, trying to make up his mind. Pipkin sat down on a stump. Oh dear, he groaned. "I'll never manage this one. How I wish I never opened that jar of jam in the first place." Then suddenly he remembered how it all began. He jumped up and snapped his fingers, for an idea had come to him. He rode back to the city as fast as he could. There he bought a long, strong, but slender rope, a hook, a knapsack, and 22 jars of jam. Then he galloped back to the meadow. He packed everything in the knapsack. Then he began to climb the giant. He climbed up the laces of the giant's boots until he came to the giant's socks. Then he climbed up the thick socks until he came to the giant's trousers. They were rough and wrinkly, and up he went, humming to himself. He came to the giant's coat. It was a shaggy, furry coat and easy to climb. When he got to a pocket, he sat on the edge of it and rested. After a bit, he started out again. He climbed the rest of the coat and came out on the giant's shoulder. The giant had long, bristly hair that hung down to his collar, and Pipkin shimmied up one of the hairs to the top of the giant's ear. From there he climbed another tuft of hair until he was standing on the giant's head. It was like standing on a field of tall, thick weeds. Softly and lightly he walked to the center of the giant's head. He got out the jam and emptied all the jars. He put the empty jars in the knapsack. He tied the hook to the end of the rope. He climbed down the giant's hair to his collar, hooked the hook in the collar, and slid it down to the ground. Soon bees and wasps began to buzz around the giant's head. The flies joined them. First by the dozens, then by the hundreds they came. They landed on the jam and sipped it, buzzing hungrily. The giant fidgeted. He stamped his feet. He gave a terrible roar of annoyance and slapped his head with all his might. But he'd forgotten that he was holding an iron club in his hand. Giants really are very stupid. Thump went the club, and down crashed Giant Graham, with a noise like 33 earthquakes, and that was the end of him. When Pipkin told the news to the king, all the bells in the city rang, and everyone danced in the streets. The king put the princess's hand in Pipkin's. "But I must tell you," said Pipkin, "I am not a knight or a nobleman, but only a tailor." "You are he who killed 7 at one blow, and chased away Giant Grim, and drowned Giant Grum, and slew Giant Graham," said the princess, "and that's good enough for me." And so they were married on that very day. Everybody sat down at long tables and ate and drank whatever they liked for 3 whole days, and of course there was plenty of jam. And that's the end. Good night, children, and God bless you.